Good evening, Laith. We are right now in South Lebanon, few hundred meters away maybe from the nearest Israeli outpost. We are right on the borders where Afikhai Adrai said that the people should not try to return because they might be targeted and because it's not safe for them. And also the Israelis today did many incursions to try to prevent the people from returning to South Lebanon. So why don't you tell our viewers what were the main things from your observation today, how we reached this area, and what also we will be doing tomorrow?
Well, first off, obviously, Afikhai Adrai has been threatening the Lebanese people since the beginning of this war, and the Lebanese people don't care about his threats. And we decided to come all the way to the border with Palestine today as a challenge to Afikhai Adrai and to be ready to cover the return of the Lebanese civilians to their villages tomorrow. We believe that starting at 4 a.m., the Lebanese civilians will attempt to return to their frontline villages as the ceasefire deadline ends. On our way here, there was many checkpoints set up by the Lebanese military that are, what we'd call flying checkpoints, that are not the permanent checkpoints that are on the way. And there was a lot of UNIFIL presence. We passed a few convoys of Lebanese military that were heading towards the front lines. And we noticed, of course, that already some of the Lebanese civilians were beginning to go back to their villages, even though the deadline is not over.
The Israelis today tried to prevent the Lebanese people from returning tomorrow by doing incursions maybe more densely than any other day in this period, 60 days period, during which they were supposed to withdraw from South Lebanon, but it was the other situation where they basically did incursions to villages they were never able to enter during the war. They destroyed houses and infrastructure, civilian infrastructure many times, like we have seen, for example, in Wadi al-Hujair during our visits. They were destroying trees, cafes, sometimes just destroying the roads. And I was very sure that we almost never saw any military position in South Lebanon that was destroyed by the Israeli army. And during all our visits, and we were visiting South Lebanon almost on daily or even sometimes every 2 days. And the places where the Israelis went, inside Hujair Valley, for example, inside Khiyam, inside Marja'yun, even in the western sector, we have never seen any military points that were destroyed, only civilian structure and infrastructures, and also trees. And basically this is what they were doing today. They destroyed trees, and they were also, they invaded the castle. It's a famous castle that belongs to the Crusader era. The Dubai castle that is nearby here, they went inside it, and also they did some destruction to the area around it. Why do you think the Israelis did this today? And especially that, this is showing basically that they are just trying to inflict some psychological warfare on the people.
Yes, it's because of their failures militarily against the steadfast resistance and their failures to scare up until now the Lebanese population in the south of Lebanon that have been steadfast and returned from the first moment the ceasefire began. Obviously, the very frontline villages are the ones that didn't have a big number of returnees. So the Israelis have announced that they would like to stay a little bit longer and ask the American government, as we heard over the last 24 hours that they want to stay longer. And the residents of the south of Lebanon made public statements saying that they will not wait for anybody. And we read the statements from the UNIFIL saying that they are going to try to block the Lebanese civilians from going back to their villages. And of course, because the Lebanese people of the south of Lebanon are very courageous and love their land, they're not going to let the UNIFIL to stand in their way. And talking about this destruction that happened in the last 24 hours, as you mentioned, we passed through Hotait Valley and we took the road, and some of our viewers can go back to the videos and look at the destruction that was there. There was destruction on the road itself, but it was passable still with cars, specifically 4x4s. Today, the Israelis went back into the Hotait Valley and brought these huge bulldozers, the D9 bulldozers, and dug out huge trenches in the road and put all these huge mounds of dirt to make it impassable. Obviously, we managed to go around that and still find a way to reach the frontline villages, and that's what the Lebanese people would do. They know every road and every little alley that they can pass to get to their village. So cutting off this main road in the Hotait Valley was clearly just out of spite, out of their anger, out of their feeling of inability to do anything to scare the Lebanese people, that they went and destroyed this main road that doesn't really cut off people from reaching their villages. So tomorrow we'll be up with the sunrise with the Lebanese people to cover their return, and we will show it to our viewers, inshallah.
Let's hope that even though the Israelis destroyed much more of the villages and right next to right on the borders after the ceasefire started in the last 60 days, and the people know that they might return to Kfar Kila, to Udaisi, to Taibe, to Deir Syrian, to Markaba, to those villages, to Aita, Sha'ab, Maroun al-Ras, and many villages, that the amount of destruction might reach a percentage as high as 80, 90%, and in some villages it reached 100% of destruction. And there is no way that 100% of that village was a military infrastructure for the resistance. So it's basically an herbicide. They are doing here what they started in Gaza and what they wanted. And they want to prevent the people here from returning to their villages for good. They are just wiping out villages. But they failed in Gaza. They failed in destroying the morals of the people, and they failed also in imposing their military and political conditions on the resistance and on the people of Gaza. And this is what we have seen today in this heroic scenes that we have now from Gaza, and that all the media around the world circulated today. We have seen how the Hamas and the Jihad and all the factions of the resistance went to claim victory, and they looked victorious, and the people in Gaza also were happy, and they were celebrating this the fact that the resistance reached the point that it was mentioned in the first day after 7th of October, that the only way you can have your prisoners back, Netanyahu, is to do a deal with us and to give freedom to the Palestinian prisoners.
Before we talk about the exchange of prisoners and the amazing media victory and morale victory that the Palestinians scored today, you were mentioning the destruction, the deliberate herbicide destruction of residents and infrastructure in the south of Lebanon and Gaza. And we saw today already the Palestinians that are returning to the north of Gaza, knowing that 100% of their homes were destroyed, but they would go back and put a tent on top of the ruins of their home rather than be internally displaced. And as we know from the history of South Lebanon and the great people of South Lebanon,
they were the first one to do it in the year 2000.
And in 2006, every time the Israelis come and destroy the villages of South Lebanon, the Lebanese people return. And as we are speaking, the colonies across the border here that were destroyed by Hezbollah, that have had the ability, the colonists had the ability to return to their stolen land, till today, they didn't return.
Sorry.
And that is because these are thieves. These are bandits that only want something that's free. Now they have to spend their money to rebuild this house. Well, they'll go and steal a different house from a Palestinian rather than spend money to rebuild this house in this colony, and or go and take a Canadian citizenship for free, or an American citizenship or European citizenship, and go steal somebody else's land. What the Canadian government and the American government or the Australian government will take from the indigenous people there. So we're going to see tomorrow the best exhibition of what does it mean to be indigenous to your land, as we're seeing it right now in Gaza, that exhibition of people going back to the ruins of their home and pitching a tent on top of that ruins to never be called a displaced or a refugee.
Well, and it was also very important the way that the resistance was able to exhibit this deal with the Israelis, to show the victory of the resistance, to show that the Israelis did not impose and were not able to impose their will on the resistance, but it was basically the total opposite. So, what do you think about this?
Well, there's so many amazing things and images that came out today from this exchange. One, obviously, that the fact that it was held in the middle of Gaza City, and the resistance came out with brand new cars.
For example, yeah, it was
which means
amazing.
How did these cars make it into Gaza?
Their cars were cleaner than our cars.
Yes, yes. And they had that stage set up with the banner that says Zionism will never win, written in Hebrew. And we had the Red Cross get on top of the stage and sign the agreement of the release. And we had those 4 Israeli female soldiers come out with their fatigue.
Yeah.
Yes, their military fatigue. So the Zionists cannot claim that these are just regular women. And these women were responsible for picking out who to kill on the fence from Gaza.
Yes.
And they came out clean, well-fed, healthy, were given gifts.
And they were smiling.
They were smiling. They were speaking Arabic, even. And in return, remember at the beginning of this war, when the Palestinian resistance was saying, let's do an exchange of prisoners of war, and we want all our long-term serving prisoners, the ones that have multiple life terms, and Ben Gvir and Smolcher said these people will never come out except dead.
Yes.
And here we have 100 of the long-term life imprisonment Palestinians released, including some that have already spent 30 somewhat years in Israeli prisons, and some of the warriors, the heroes of the Jalbour, escape from prison. And these
prison break.
Yes, the prison break there. So to see the images that happened both in Gaza and then in the West Bank, where the Palestinian non-authority, the Mahmoud Abbas collaborationist Vichy regime, that were trying to suppress the Palestinian joy in Ramallah as the prisoners were arriving. I don't know if our viewers noticed this, but the crowds were carrying the flags of Hamas,
Yes.
Islamic Jihad, PFLP,
The green
DFLP,
flags.
And the Palestinian Authority goons attacked these people and brought down the flags of the Palestinian resistance groups and tried to put up the Fatah flags. And that's when the crowd started chanting for the Qassam brigades in front of all the world's cameras from the center of Ramallah. So today's exhibition, both in Gaza, showed how the people in Gaza, after 15 months of genocide, still stand by the resistance. And now we see a full exhibition in the heart of the collaborationist regime of Mahmoud Abbas in Ramallah, the most cushy place in all of occupied Palestine. Is the crowds came out chanting for the resistance. So if tomorrow there was any true democracy and an election, Mahmoud Abbas and Fatah and all the goons with them will be wiped off the map of
because
electoral.
they sided against the resistance, and that's what the Palestinians can never accept, actually. And it was, we were discussing this, and I said that it was a stupid move from the claimed Palestinian Authority in Ramallah to try to stand against. They might have done many other alternative things, like for example, trying to claim that this victory was also because of their maybe political moves and their help for the resistance to try to do it. But instead they decided only to side with, basically they sided against the resistance, which is with the Israelis. And
Yes.
the Palestinians will never accept this.
Yes, look, many of the internal enemies of the liberation of Palestine and the internal enemies of the resistance, even in Lebanon, for the last few weeks, they were starting to think that they have the upper hand.
Yes.
Okay, and we saw how the Palestinian non-authority security forces over the last 2 days collaborated with the Israelis in the attack on Jenin and
camp.
Jenin refugee camp, and even arrested and humiliated some of the resistance fighters as they escaped from Jenin and Jenin camp. And now we saw
And they were kicked out from the funeral ceremony of one or two martyrs.
Yes.
If you
So
remember
now
the
you
video.
see today this image that happened in Ramallah, it must have really scared the hell out of Mahmoud Abbas and all those goons with him, because it's clear right now that actually the release of these Palestinian prisoners is another sign of victory for the resistance and the choice of resistance. So whatever internal collaborators in Lebanon and in Palestine think they have won with the massacres of civilians in both Gaza or Lebanon, or the martyrdom of the leadership of the resistance in Lebanon and in Gaza, they didn't calculate that actually this birthed more resistance in the hearts of the Lebanese people and the Palestinian people.
This is what we always, as Southerners and Lebanese people, believe, that whatever happened, whatever was the cost, it will make the people more attached to the choice of resistance, because they don't even have another choice. It's either humiliation, death, destruction, displacement, and all the misery that will come with this, or fighting, resisting, and seeking freedom and fighting for freedom. So it's not actually something to think of. You can't, and no sane person will choose humiliation over freedom, and occupation over over resisting and fighting to reach a place where he can go to his village and stay there and act sovereign, like they did for the last 18 years, for the last 23 years, basically, in Lebanon. For 23 years after the liberation, the people of Hula and the people of Mays al-Jabal and the people of Markaba and all the nearby villages, they were living there, building their houses and now they will just do it again. And if the Israelis were thinking that by doing this amount of destruction and this amount of terrorism, they will destroy the morals of the people, and they will make them thinking of changing the place of living in Lebanon, and accepting the fact that they will be internally displaced forever with their families. They don't know the Lebanese people. The Lebanese people, as you said, and I believe that we will be seeing the Lebanese people returning to these villages. Of course, they will start tomorrow, but we will be seeing this return over the whole week and the following weeks, basically, because we know that this way of returning to the villages will come in waves. So you will have tomorrow the first people who will try to return, and they will also tell the people outside what's happening and how to return, how to pick the best roads, and they will share the videos, and this will make the snowball effect, and this will make this return grow bigger and bigger. And I believe that the Israelis, they might do something because they are terrorists, and they might do something against the civilians. Do you think that they will attack directly the civilians, and to which extent this is reasonable, logical?
Well, before we started filming, the Israelis blew up parts of a few villages.
Yes.
Tonight, we heard 4 different explosions. And also, there was a landmine somehow that blew up under Israeli soldiers, and an officer and a soldier are dead, and I don't know how many are injured.
Wounded, but we're not sure that if they are dead until now.
And obviously those mines were probably deactivated by the resistance before. You don't know how this mine explodes. So all of this is omens to both the Israeli military leadership, if they think about what's going to happen. This is even if it was a mistake, this is a signal from the Almighty Creator. Okay.
It might be from the Almighty Creator, but it's very hard for me to think that, it by accident, that during the last day of the period of the ceasefire, and for the first time during the 60 days of this period during which the Israelis were supposed to withdraw, in the last night before the 60 days, a mine blew up, or an IED exploded and injured an officer and many soldiers.
It could be the resistance giving a hint to the Israelis to try to help them make the right decision of leaving without having to lose some of their wimpy soldiers that with their diapers soiled, and or it might be the hand of our Creator. Point is, we don't want to presume. For now,
we're
analyzing,
yes.
But in the end, it is a signal for these Zionists, and of course, these are vicious, bloodthirsty, massacre, addicted colonists.
Yes.
And we've seen them target civilians here in Lebanon over the last few days. Like a civilian that was going back to their village in Talousa, and was
a 65 years old man who was for sure not a fighter, and he was simply they shoot him with a machine gun in his car, like cold blood murder.
And we saw the same thing in Gaza over the last few days,
yes.
Since the beginning of the ceasefire there, where the Israelis were just targeting for the hell of it, because they can't curb their animalistic murdering instincts that they have. But as we saw, since today at least, there hasn't been any attacks on Gaza. We see them taking out their frustrations in the West Bank. So you have to always think about these monsters, these ghouls in the Zionist colony that they will try to harm civilians for the hell of it, especially when they lose a military battle. The historic military battle here in South Lebanon, and that in Gaza, which is going to be recorded in the annals of history as one of the most remarkable military victories, where both the resistance here in Lebanon and the resistance in Gaza had to fight the whole might of the most
Western
militarized empire in the history of humanity.
Yes.
And alhamdulillah, because we're on the just side, what we are fighting for our land, for our people, we're not stealing anybody's land,
Because
we're not
thousands
harming.
of martyrs who fought until the last bullet and until the last drop of blood in Khiyam and in Kfar Kila and in Adaisi and in all the towns and we have visited before. This is why we are still able to come here, a few hundred meters away from the borders.
And this is something that maybe our viewers need to understand. Many of the naysayers, the ones that want to weaken the will of people, say, well, was it worth it? Tens of thousands of martyrs in Gaza and Lebanon to release those prisoners? Well, for the whole world to understand, we love our prisoners. We consider them living martyrs. And to them, we will fight and martyr ourselves to release them so they don't have to live this dying life in the dungeons of our enemy. And those that came out today, those prisoners, sending their love to the resistance in Lebanon and Palestine and Yemen and Iraq and Iran, that freed them, and their love to all the families of those who were martyred. You could see how the families of the martyrs themselves would give their own heart to release these prisoners.
Yes, and all this fight for releasing the prisoners in the Israeli prisons come in context with all the fight for freedom. It's not separated from all the struggle to liberate our land and liberate our people from the occupation and from this Western hegemony that is symbolized by this Israeli entity trying just to act as God here in this part of the world. And this is why fighting those Israeli criminals and murderers have this valuable importance, although the sacrifices always are, as we have seen, big. But the result is that we are saying we are not slaves for the Zionists. We are free people, and we will never accept this superiority, that claimed superiority by the Zionists and by the Israelis over the people of these lands in Lebanon and Syria and Palestine and Egypt and Jordan, in Iraq and all the region, because the greater Israel does not separate between the people of the project of Great Israel. It doesn't separate between the people of our region. So why we should think that our struggle will be also separated from each other, or we will have different struggle? We have one struggle, and a part of this struggle is to release the prisoners in the Israeli prisons, and also to liberate what has been occupied of our lands, and also the final stage in this whole struggle for liberation is to liberate all of Palestine. And this war was, of course, a step on the way to liberate Palestine, despite the sacrifices and despite all what the people of this region gave in this war.
Well, we have been lucky to have the people of South Lebanon open their homes and open their villages to us to be witnesses over the last 16 months.
Yes.
And we have attempted to give back to the people of the land, to our people in Lebanon and Palestine as much as we can, and we will continue, inshallah, to do our duties to present their story to the rest of the world, and we hope that we can do things that they are proud of. Inshallah, tomorrow we will see the happiness in the eyes of our brothers and sisters coming back to their villages in South Lebanon, as we saw the happiness in the eyes of the families of the prisoners being released in the West Bank. Hadi, it's been a great time together. We continue to ask everybody to go to our website, freepalestine.video, donate, join us on all our social media platforms, and share our content. Until we meet you next time, we bid you all a free Palestine.